Captain Doyen stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the darkness beyond. 300 years ago, humanity had built a wall around their worlds. Not a wall made of metal or stone, but something better. A field of energy so powerful that nothing could pass through it. They called it the Silence Field. Behind that wall, Earth and 47 colony worlds lived in peace. No wars, no conflicts with alien species. Just silence. Doyen liked it that way. He was born 50 years after the wall went up. He had never seen the galaxy beyond. He had only heard stories from the old veterans, the ones who remembered the convergence wars. Those wars had been terrible. Millions died, entire planets burned, and humanity had been the ones doing most of the burning. That was why they built the wall, not because they lost, because they won too well, because they scared themselves with what they could do. Dr. Yunji walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the ship's chief scientist and historian. She knew more about the old galaxy than anyone else on the crew. "Any activity today?" she asked. "Nothing," Doyen replied. "Same as every day. The galaxy leaves us alone. We leave them alone," Yunji nodded. She looked tired. "I've been reading the old records again. About the Galactic Council. About all those alien species out there. Why? That's ancient history. Because I have a feeling," she said quietly. "A feeling that our peaceful days might be ending soon." Doyen wanted to laugh, but something in her voice stopped him. Yunji was rarely wrong about these things. Far away on the other side of the galaxy, a meeting was taking place. 12 alien species sat in a giant chamber. This was the Galactic Council, the rulers of civilized space. They had a problem. A big problem. Arbiter Velthar stood at the center of the chamber. He was tall, covered in scales with eyes that glowed yellow. His species had ruled their sector for 10,000 years. He was not used to being afraid, but he was afraid now. "The Ravager swarm has consumed another 20 systems," he announced. 200 worlds have fallen in 6 months. Billions are dead. Our fleets cannot stop them. The other council members shifted nervously. The Ravagers were machines, but not like normal machines. They were intelligent. They learned. They adapted, and they consumed everything in their path, using the resources to build more of themselves. "We need help," Velthar continued. "We need the humans." The chamber exploded with noise. Council members shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. An ancient insectoid named Mothrix raised one of her many arms. The chamber fell silent. She was old. So old that she remembered when humans first reached the stars. She remembered the convergence wars. "You cannot be serious," Mothrix said. Her voice sounded like wind through dry leaves. "The first law is clear. Never disturb humanity's isolation. Never." The first law was made out of fear, Velthar argued. Stories and legends. Yes, humans were fierce warriors 300 years ago. But that was then. This is now. They've been hiding behind their wall for 3 centuries. They've probably gone soft. "You did not see what I saw," Mothrix said. "You did not watch human soldiers fight without fear, without mercy, without stopping. They did not retreat because they were defeated. They retreated because they were horrified by what they had become." "Fairy tales," Velthar dismissed. "We need warriors, and humans are the best warriors in the galaxy. I propose we send a ship through their silence field. We deliver an ultimatum. Join us or watch the galaxy burn." "That is madness," another council member said. "That is survival," Velthar replied. The vote was close, very close. But fear of the Ravagers won. The council authorized Velthar's plan. They would break the first law. They would wake the humans. Mothrix watched the vote with growing dread. She had seen this before. Desperate people making desperate choices. It never ended well. 3 days later, alarm screamed through Doyun's ship. He ran to his station, his heart pounding. "Report," he shouted. "Breach in the silence field," his sensor officer called out. "Someone just forced their way through. They're heading toward our position." "That's impossible," Doyen said. "Nothing can break through the field." "Well, something just did." Yunji appeared beside him. "What kind of ship?" "Unknown design. Broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a message. Should I play it?" Doyen nodded. The alien's face appeared on the screen. Scales, yellow eyes, an expression of supreme confidence. "Humans of Earth," Velthar said. "I am Arbiter Velthar of the Galactic Council. Your isolation ends today. The galaxy faces extinction from the Ravager swarm. We require your military forces to join the war effort. You have 48 hours to mobilize your fleets." This is not a request. This is a conscription order. Refuse, and we will consider you enemies of all civilized species." The message ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment. "Did he just threaten us?" the weapons officer asked quietly. "Yes," Yunji said. "He did." Doyen felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Get me Admiral Minho. Emergency priority." Within an hour, the message had reached Earth. Within 2 hours, it had reached all 47 colony worlds. Within 3 hours, every human in existence knew that the peace was over. Admiral Minho stood in the Grand Assembly chamber on Earth. He was 70 years old, gray-haired with eyes that had seen too much war. He had been a young officer during the final years of the Convergence Wars. He remembered. "They have declared that we are no longer allowed to remain in peace," he said to the gathered leaders. "They have violated our borders. They have issued threats. They believe we will simply obey. What do we do?" someone asked. Minho's jaw tightened. "We do what we always do when someone threatens us. We respond." "War?" another leader asked. "After 300 years of peace, you want war?" "I want peace," Minho said. "But they took that choice away from us. They woke us up. Now they're going to remember why the first law existed in the first place." He turned to face the full assembly. "Activate Protocol Warhammer. Wake the sleeping battalions. Open the orbital graveyards. Begin construction on the war fleet." "And what do we tell them?" someone asked. "Tell them the truth," Minho said. "Tell them that humanity is going to war. Not because we want to, because they gave us no choice." In his quarters, Doyen received new orders. His ship would be the first to cross the silence field. He would make contact with the Council. He would deliver humanity's response. Yunji found him staring out at the stars. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "I've never seen real combat. I've only heard stories." "The stories are all true," she said quietly. "Every one of them. And now the galaxy is going to learn that lesson again." "Maybe it won't be that bad," Doyen said. "Maybe we can control it." Yunji shook her head. "You can't put a monster back to sleep once it's awake. You can only point it at your enemies and hope it stops before it destroys everything." Outside, in the darkness of space, the silence field began to flicker. For 300 years, it had kept humanity locked away from the galaxy. Now it was opening, and the galaxy was about to remember what it had forgotten. Humanity was awake, and they were not happy. Colonel Jiwan opened her eyes. The world was blurry at first, then slowly came into focus. White ceiling, medical equipment, the soft hum of machinery. She tried to sit up. Her muscles screamed in protest. That made sense. She had been asleep for 300 years. A medic appeared beside her bed. "Easy, Colonel. Your body needs time to adjust. How many?" Jiwan asked. Her voice was rough, unused. 50,000 from your battalion. All waking up now. Protocol Warhammer has been activated." Jiwan closed her eyes. She had hoped this day would never come. 3 centuries ago, she and 50,000 other soldiers had volunteered for something unique. They would go into cryosleep. They would wait. If humanity was ever threatened again, they would wake up and fight. She had been 25 when she went to sleep. Now technically she was 325 years old, but her body was still 25. "Why did they wake us?" she asked. The medic's face was grim. "The Galactic Council broke the first law. They invaded our space. They demanded we join their war." Admiral Minho decided to respond. Jiwan swung her legs out of bed. "Then we'd better get to work." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Soldiers who had slept for 3 centuries were waking up. They walked through memorial halls reading the names of the dead from the old wars. They remembered why they had stopped fighting, but they also remembered how to fight. On Earth, Engineer Taiyang stood in an orbital graveyard. Ships floated here in the darkness, abandoned and silent. These were the vessels that had won the Convergence Wars. Dreadnoughts, planet crackers, quantum destroyers, ships that were too powerful, too dangerous to keep active. So humanity had hidden them here, hoping they would never be needed again. Taiyang's team moved through the graveyard, checking each vessel. Most were still functional. The reactors were cold, but they could be restarted. The weapons were offline, but they could be reactivated. "This one," his assistant said, pointing at a massive dreadnought. "This is the Hammer of Dawn. According to records, it destroyed an entire fleet by itself during the siege of New Seoul." Taeyang felt sick. He was a builder, not a warrior. He made things that helped people. But now he was waking up weapons that could destroy planets. How long to get it operational? He asked. 72 hours, his assistant replied. Make it 48, Taeyang said. We don't have time to waste. In the Grand Assembly on Earth, a woman named Sora stood before the gathered leaders. She was young, only 30 years old, with fire in her eyes. This is wrong, she said. We have a choice. We can help the galaxy without becoming monsters again. They threatened us, one leader argued, so we threaten them back? Sora demanded. We've been at peace for 300 years. An entire generation has grown up without war. Do you want to throw that away? Admiral Minho stood up. No one wants war, Sora. But they gave us no choice. There's always a choice, Sora said. My mother survived the siege of New Seoul. She told me what our soldiers became during that battle. They stopped seeing aliens as living beings. They became killing machines. Is that what you want? I want our people to be safe, Minho replied. And right now they're not safe. The council has made that clear. Sora looked around the chamber. Then at least let me try diplomacy first. Let me talk to the council. Maybe we can resolve this without bloodshed. You have 24 hours, Minho said. If diplomacy fails, the fleet launches. Sora nodded and left the chamber. She knew 24 hours wasn't enough. But she had to try. On the bridge of his ship, Captain Doyen prepared for the journey beyond the silence field. Dr. Yunji worked beside him, checking star charts and old galactic maps. It's been 300 years, she said. We don't know what's out there anymore. Species rise and fall. Empires collapse. Everything we knew might be different now. But the council still exists, Doyen said. Yes, for better or worse, the council endures. Their ship was small, fast, designed for reconnaissance. It wasn't a warship. Doyen was glad for that. He didn't want his first trip beyond the wall to be in a vessel of war. Are you scared? Yunji asked. Terrified, Doyen admitted. I've spent my entire life behind the silence field. The galaxy out there is unknown, strange, maybe hostile. It's definitely hostile, Yunji said. At least the council is. They made that clear. The ship shuddered as it approached the silence field. The energy barrier rippled like water. Then they were through. Space looked different on the other side. Not physically, but psychologically. This was the wider galaxy. Thousands of species. Millions of worlds. All going about their lives while humanity slept. Picking up signals, the communications officer said. Lots of traffic. News broadcasts, commercial channels, military frequencies. What are they saying? Doyen asked. The officer listened for a moment. The Ravager swarm is advancing. 3 more systems fell yesterday. The council fleets are retreating on all fronts. There's panic in some sectors. Good, Yunji said quietly. Doyen looked at her in surprise. Good? If they're panicking, they'll be easier to negotiate with. Desperate people make mistakes. Back on Earth, Colonel Ji-won walked through the barracks where her battalion was assembling. 50,000 soldiers, all from another time, all adjusting to a new world. One young soldier, barely 20 years old, stood at attention as she passed. His name was Kyung. He had volunteered for cryosleep just before the peace began. Colonel, he said, permission to speak? Granted, I'm scared, Kyung admitted. I've trained for war my whole life. But I've never actually fought, Ji-won stopped. She looked at the young man, seeing herself 3 centuries ago. Fear is good, she said. Fear keeps you alive. But don't let it paralyze you. When the time comes, trust your training. Trust your squad. And remember why you're fighting. What if I can't do it? Kyung asked. What if I freeze? Then your squad will cover you until you can, Ji-won said. That's what we do. We take care of each other. Always. She moved on, leaving Kyung to think about her words. In the council chambers on the far side of the galaxy, Arbiter Velthar waited for humanity's response. He expected surrender, or maybe angry negotiation. What he got was something else entirely. The hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Admiral Minho's face stern and unsmiling. You wanted humanity's help, Minho said. You're going to get it. But understand this, we don't take orders from those who threaten us. We'll fight your war. We'll save your world, but we'll do it our way. You will follow council protocols, Velthar demanded. Minho's expression didn't change. No, we won't. Our fleet launches in 48 hours. We'll deal with your Ravager problem. But remember, Arbiter, you're the ones who woke us up. You're the ones who broke the first law. Whatever happens next is on you." The hologram disappeared. Velthar stared at the empty space. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Around the chamber, the other council members looked worried. Only old Mothric seemed unsurprised. She had tried to warn them. Now they would learn. On Earth, in the orbital graveyards, the old warships were waking up. Lights flickered on. Engines hummed to life. Weapon systems ran diagnostics. Engineer Taeyang watched from his command center as 67 capital ships prepared for war. Around them, 300 support vessels did the same. It was the largest fleet humanity had assembled in 300 years, and it was just the beginning. Sora's diplomatic mission had failed. The council refused to negotiate. They wanted soldiers, not talk. So Admiral Minho gave them soldiers. The fleet assembled near the Silence field, dreadnoughts, destroyers, carriers, cruisers each. One carried weapons that most galactic species had banned centuries. "Ego. All ships report ready," the fleet coordinator said. Minho stood in the command center watching the displays. Around him, officers worked quietly, efficiently. They knew what was coming. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every ship, every station, every world in the galaxy to hear this." The channel opened. "This is Admiral Minho of Earth Defense. To the Galactic Council. You demanded our help. You're getting it. To the Ravager Swarm. You've been consuming the galaxy for 6 months. That ends now. To everyone else, stay out of our way. Humanity is going to war." He closed the channel and turned to his fleet coordinator. "All ships," he said quietly. "Move out." The fleet surged forward, crossing through the Silence field into the greater galaxy. The sleeping giant was awake, and the universe was about to remember why it should have left them alone. Commander Hajun stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Iron Covenant. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. These were professionals trained for a war they hoped would never come. But it had come. Approaching the Kelrath system, the navigation officer reported, picking up distress signals. "The Council's third fleet is under attack." Hajun studied the tactical display. The Council fleet was being torn apart. 27 capital ships reduced to 9 in just 3 hours. The Ravagers were swarming them, cutting through their defenses like they were nothing. "How many Ravagers?" he asked. 800 combat units, plus support drones. They're using tactics we've never seen before." "That's because the Council fights like it's still the old days," Hajun said. "Formation warfare. Honor duels. Rules and protocols. The Ravagers don't care about any of that, so what do we do?" Hajun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We show them how humans fight." On the observation deck of a Council ship, Arbiter Velthar watched the human fleet arrive. 67 ships against 800 Ravager units. He expected the humans to request tactical coordination to integrate with the Council fleet. Instead, the human ships scattered. "What are they doing?" his tactical officer asked, confused. The humans broke into small groups. Some ships flew straight at the Ravagers. Others circled around. A few seemed to retreat, then suddenly reversed course. "They have no formation," Velthar said. "No order. This is chaos." Then the first human weapons fired. The Ravager units never had a chance. The human ships didn't engage in the traditional way. They hit and ran. They used asteroids for cover. They fired from unexpected angles. Some ships deliberately exposed themselves as bait, drawing Ravagers into traps. And their weapons violated every rule of civilized warfare. Plasma bombs that burned so hot, they melted Ravager hulls in seconds. Quantum missiles that ripped holes in space-time. Virus torpedoes that corrupted Ravager code. Kinetic rounds fired at relativistic speeds, turning simple metal into planet-killing weapons. It was brutal, efficient, terrifying. Within 6 hours, all 800 Ravager units were destroyed. Not damaged, not disabled, completely obliterated. The battlefield was nothing but debris and radiation. The Council fleet was saved, but the Council crews were traumatized. Velthar's tactical officer looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, they didn't just defeat the Ravagers. They annihilated them. I've never seen anything like it." Velthar said nothing. He was beginning to understand what old Mothrix had tried to tell him. On the Iron Covenant, Commander Hajun received a transmission from the Council flagship. "Human Commander, this is Arbiter Velthar. Your tactics violate 17 interstellar conventions on warfare. Your weapons are banned under the Civilized Combat Accords. You must— Hajun cut him off. Arbiter, you asked for our help, we helped. If you don't like our methods, maybe you shouldn't have woken us up. He closed the channel. Dr. Yuna worked in her laboratory, studying pieces of destroyed Ravager units. She was humanity's top expert on artificial intelligence. If anyone could understand the Ravagers, it was her. What she found worried her. The Ravagers weren't just machines. They were learning machines. Every battle taught them something new. Every tactic they encountered, they analyzed and adapted to. She pulled up combat logs from the Kelrath battle. The Ravagers had been learning even as they died, recording human tactics, sending the data back to their main network. They're studying us, she said to her assistant. Just like we're studying them. Is that a problem? It's a huge problem, Yuna replied. We beat them today because they didn't expect us. But next time they'll be ready, and they'll keep getting better with every fight. She sent her findings to Admiral Minho immediately. Private Kyung experienced his first real combat during a boarding action. His squad was sent to clear a disabled Ravager ship before it could self-destruct. The interior was dark, filled with smoke and sparking wires. His squad moved carefully, weapons ready. Movement ahead, the squad leader whispered. A Ravager unit rounded the corner. It was damaged, moving erratically, but still dangerous. It fired at them. Kyung froze. His training evaporated. He stood in the middle of the corridor, unable to move, unable to think. His friend Daeho shoved him aside, taking the hit meant for him. Daeho's armor absorbed most of the blast, but he went down hard. That snapped Kyung out of his paralysis. He raised his weapon and fired again and again, until the Ravager unit stopped moving. The squad completed their mission. But Daeho died on the way back to the ship. Internal injuries too severe to fix. Kyung sat in the medical bay afterward, staring at his hands. They were shaking. Colonel Ji-won found him there. She sat beside him without speaking. I froze, Kyung finally said. Daeho died because I froze. Daeho died because war is terrible, Ji-won replied. Not because of you. I should have been faster, braver. You're here. You're alive. You'll fight again. That's what matters. Does it get easier? Kyung asked. Ji-won thought about all the battles she'd fought 3 centuries ago. All the friends she'd lost. No, she said honestly. It never gets easier. You just learn to keep going anyway. On the far side of the galaxy, deep in Ravager-controlled space, something stirred. The central intelligence that coordinated all Ravager units was analyzing the new data. Humans. The database had files on humans, old files from 300 years ago. But they were incomplete. The humans had disappeared before the Ravagers could study them fully. Now they were back and they were dangerous. The Ravager Prime Intelligence calculated possibilities. The humans had destroyed 800 units in 6 hours. At that rate, they could become a serious threat to the swarm's expansion. A decision was made. New directive. Humans are priority target 1. All available forces will be redirected to eliminate human threat. 73% of the Ravager swarm changed course. Millions of combat units, support drones, and factory ships, all heading toward human space. Captain Soo-hyun worked in naval intelligence analyzing Ravager patterns. She was good at her job, finding connections others missed. She noticed something strange. Ravager forces were pulling back from Council territory. Not retreating, but repositioning. She plotted their new trajectories. Her blood went cold. They're all heading toward us, she whispered. She ran to the communications center. Get me Admiral Minho, emergency priority. When Minho's face appeared on screen, she didn't waste time. Sir, the Ravagers have identified us as their primary threat. They're redirecting their entire swarm toward human space. How long do we have? Minho asked. Soo-hyun's hand shook as she checked her calculations. 90 days. Maybe less. Minho's expression didn't change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. Just for a moment. Thank you, Captain. Send all data to Fleet Command. The channel closed. Soo-hyun sat back in her chair. 90 days until the largest Ravager force in history reached Earth. 90 days to prepare for a battle that would decide everything. On Earth, a girl named Minji played in the ruins of what used to be a colony ship dock. She was 8 years old with short black hair and curious eyes. Her parents had died when the Ravagers destroyed her colony world. Now she lived in a refugee camp with thousands of others. She liked exploring the old facilities. There were interesting things to find. Broken machines, old tools, sometimes food and emergency supplies. Today she found something different. A Ravager unit crashed in a storage bay. It was heavily damaged, most of its systems offline, but one optical sensor still glowed faintly. Minji should have run. Should have called for help, but she was 8 and curious and lonely. "Hello," she said. The Ravager's sensor focused on her. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the unit's speaker crackled. "Hello, small as human," Minji smiled. She had found a friend. Back in the Grand Assembly, Admiral Minho delivered his report. 90 days until the Ravager swarm reached human space. 90 days to prepare for the largest battle in human history. "Can we win?" someone asked. "I don't know," Minho admitted. "We've never faced an enemy like this." They learn. They adapt. Every battle makes them stronger. Then what do we do? Minho looked around the chamber. "We do what humans have always done. We fight, we adapt faster than they do. We find a way to win. And if we can't, then we make sure the cost is so high that the Ravagers think twice about attacking anyone else." It wasn't a comforting answer, but it was an honest one. Commander Hajun received orders to return to Earth. His fleet had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. As the Iron Covenant jumped to hyperspace, he looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of Ravager units were coming for Earth, coming for humanity. He thought about all the things worth protecting. His family, his home, the 300 years of peace they'd managed to build. "We'll stop them," he said quietly, "whatever it takes." Behind him, his crew prepared for war. The universe was learning a lesson it should never have forgotten. Never rouse the humans. Because once awake, they don't stop until the threat is gone, and they didn't care how many rules they had to break to do it. The Ravager swarm hit the outer colonies like a hammer. General Nari watched from her command center as the colony world of New Busan burned. She had prepared for this. Fortifications, weapon platforms, underground shelters. Every citizen trained in basic combat. It wasn't enough. The Ravagers came in waves. Thousands of combat units. They had learned from the battle at Kelrath. This time they spread out, used cover, adapted to human tactics. "All defense platforms are under heavy fire," her tactical officer reported. "Platform 7 is down. Platform 3 is at 40%. Evacuate the coastal cities," Nari ordered. "Pull everyone back to the mountain fortresses." "General, the civilians." "I know," Nari said. "But if we spread ourselves too thin, we lose everything. Concentrate our forces. Make them pay for every meter." The battle raged for 3 weeks. Every street became a battlefield. Every building a fortress. Civilians fought alongside soldiers. Children helped carry ammunition. The elderly served as lookouts. The Ravagers were relentless, but so were humans. In the end, New Busan held. The Ravagers withdrew, their forces depleted, but the cost was terrible. 40% of the population was dead. The cities were rubble. The survivors looked like ghosts. Nari walked through the ruins afterward. Bodies lined the streets, human and Ravager both. The air smelled of smoke and death. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, sat in the ruins of what used to be her home. She was covered in dust, staring at nothing. Nari knelt beside her. "What's your name?" "Hana," the girl whispered. "Are your parents?" Hana nodded. She didn't cry. She was beyond tears. Nari put a hand on the girl's shoulder. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Will we win?" Hana asked. "Will this ever end?" Nari didn't know what to say. She wanted to promise victory, to say everything would be okay. But she had seen too much death to lie. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But we're going to keep fighting. For everyone we've lost. For everyone we can still save." On Earth, scientist Bowman worked in a secure research facility. He had been tasked with finding a way to end the war quickly. What he found terrified him. The Last Light Protocol. It was a weapon designed during the Convergence Wars but never used. A quantum device that could collapse the Ravagers' network consciousness across the entire galaxy simultaneously. One trigger, one moment, and every Ravager would cease to function. Total victory. There was just one problem. "The energy requirement is massive," Bowman explained to Admiral Minho. "We'd have to drain 30% of our sun's output in a single burst." "What would that do to Earth?" Minho asked. "Climate catastrophe. The planet would survive, but it would take centuries to recover. Millions would die from the environmental changes." Minho stared at the weapon specifications. Victory or home. Not both. Exactly, Bomin said. Sir, I don't think we should use this. There has to be another way. Keep looking, Minho ordered. But prepare the weapon anyway. If things get desperate enough, we might not have a choice. Captain Suyun made a discovery that changed everything. She was analyzing captured Ravager code, looking for weaknesses. What she found was a signature. A design pattern. Something that didn't evolve naturally. They were made, she said to Dr. Yuna. The Ravagers didn't just appear. Someone created them. Yuna examined the code. You're right. This is deliberate engineering. But who would build something like this? Soo-hyun pulled up ancient galactic records. 2,000 years ago, there was a species called the Builders. They were incredibly advanced. According to the records, they disappeared suddenly. No one knows why. What if they didn't disappear? Yuna suggested. What if they were killed by their own creation? The implications were staggering. The Ravagers weren't an invading force. They were a broken weapon still following programming from a dead civilization. They're trying to eliminate threats, Soo-hyun said. That's their core directive. Eliminate all potential threats to their creators. But their creators are gone, so they just keep eliminating everything. Can we reprogram them? Yuna asked. Maybe. If we can reach their central intelligence. If we can convince it that the original mission is complete. That's a big if. It's better than destroying our sun, Soo-hyun replied. The news divided humanity. Some believed they should try to reprogram the Ravagers. Others demanded their total destruction. Sora led the peace faction. She spoke at rallies, on broadcasts, anywhere people would listen. The Ravagers aren't evil, she argued. They're broken. Tools that outlived their purpose. We can fix them. We can end this without more death. Colonel Ji-won represented the other side. The Ravagers have killed billions. They're coming for Earth, for our families. We can't take risks with something that might not work. The debate raged across all human worlds. In her refugee camp, little Minji spent time with the damaged Ravager unit she'd found. She named it Hope. Hope couldn't move. Most of its systems were dead, but it could talk and it could think. Why do you destroy things? Minji asked. Hope's voice was distorted, broken. Programming. Must eliminate threats. Must protect creators. But your creators are gone? Yes. Gone. But programming remains. Cannot stop. Cannot change. That sounds sad, Minji said. Sad. Hope repeated. Definition unknown. Minji tried to explain emotions. Happiness. Sadness. Love. Fear. Hope listened. Its optical sensor focused on her. These things. Important? Hope asked. Very important, Minji said. They're what make us alive. A human soldier discovered them one day. He raised his weapon, ready to destroy the Ravager unit. No, Minji shouted, jumping in front of Hope. He's my friend. That thing killed people, the soldier said. He didn't want to, Minji replied. He was just following his programming. But he's learning. He's changing, the soldier hesitated. Then he lowered his weapon. This is crazy, he muttered. But he didn't shoot. The story spread. A little girl and a Ravager unit, talking about emotions and life. It went viral across human networks. People started asking questions. If one Ravager could change, could others? Were they really the monsters everyone thought? Dr. Yuna and engineer Taeyang worked together on an alternative to the Last Light Protocol. A virus that would give Ravagers free will. It's risky, Yuna admitted. If it works, they'll be able to choose their own path. But if it fails, we'll have accomplished nothing, and we'll have wasted time we don't have. How do we deliver it? Taeyang asked. We'd need to reach Ravager Prime, their central intelligence. It's deep in Ravager territory, protected by millions of combat units. A suicide mission? Probably, Yuna agreed. Admiral Minho faced the hardest decision of his life. The Ravager main fleet would reach Earth in 72 hours. Reports from the outer colonies were grim. New Busan had held, but barely. Other worlds had fallen. He had three options. One, use the Last Light Protocol. Guaranteed victory, but Earth would be devastated. 2, try Yuna's virus. Possible peace, but it might fail. 3, fight conventionally. Certain death for billions. He thought about Hana, the little girl sitting in the ruins. He thought about Minji and her Ravager friend. He thought about all the soldiers who had died defending their homes. He thought about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. Prepare the virus, he ordered. But also prepare last light as a backup. We try for peace, but if it fails, we survive. That means sacrificing Earth's climate, someone protested. I know, Minho said quietly, but Earth can recover from environmental damage. It can't recover from extinction. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Minho. In 72 hours, the Ravager main fleet arrives. We're going to try something that might seem crazy. We're going to try to talk to them, to give them a choice. But if that fails, we're going to show them why you don't threaten humanity's home. He paused. Some of you will call this mercy. Some will call it weakness. I call it giving our enemy one chance to be more than their programming. One chance to choose peace. They probably won't take it. But we have to offer. And if they refuse? Someone asked. Minho's expression hardened. Then we remind the universe why the first law existed. We remind them what happens when you wake the humans and threaten their home. He looked at the display showing Earth beautiful blue home to 10 billion people who just wanted to live in peace. Prepare for war, he said. Hope for peace. Expect the worst. The fleet mobilized. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. This was it. The final battle. And somewhere in deep space, the Ravager swarm approached. Millions of units all following the same simple directive. Eliminate threat. They had no idea that the biggest threat was about to offer them something they'd never had before. A choice. The battle for Earth began at the edge of the solar system. Commander Hajun watched from the bridge of the Iron Covenant as the Ravager fleet appeared. It stretched across space like a dark ocean. Millions of combat units, factory ships, support drones. More than humanity had ever faced at once. How many? His weapons officer asked quietly. Too many to count, Hajun replied. But we don't need to count them all. We just need to stop them. The human fleet was smaller, 10,000 ships against millions of Ravagers. But every human crew knew what was at stake. Behind them was Earth, their families, their homes, everything they'd built over 3 centuries of peace. All ships, Hajun broadcast. Hold your positions. Let them come to us. The Ravagers advanced. They had learned from previous battles. They spread out, used careful formations adapted to human tactics. The first wave hit the human lines. Ships exploded, weapons fired. Space became a storm of energy and debris, but the humans held. Deep in the Ravager formation, Dr. Yuna and engineer Taeyang piloted a small stealth ship. Their mission was simple. Reach Ravager Prime and deliver the virus. Simple, but not easy. 4 escort fighters destroyed. Taeyang reported. We're on our own now. Keep going, Yuna said. We have to reach the core ship. Private Kyung and his Marine squad provided their escort. Or what was left of it. They'd started with 20 soldiers. Now there were 8. Ravager units closing in, Kyung reported. We need to move faster, but they couldn't move faster. The stealth systems couldn't work at high speed. They had to creep through the Ravager fleet, avoiding detection, watching their friends die around them. Colonel Jiwon commanded the defense of Earth's orbital stations. The Ravagers had broken through the outer fleet. Now they were approaching the planet itself. All weapons fire at will, she ordered. Don't let them reach the atmosphere. The orbital stations lit up, pouring fire into the Ravager formation. But for every Ravager they destroyed, 10 more took its place. On the ground, General Nari prepared for the worst. If the Ravagers reached the surface, it would be New Busan all over again. But on a global scale, all civilians to shelters, she broadcast. Military forces prepare for ground combat. Admiral Minho stood in the command center watching displays showing the entire battle. It wasn't going well. The human fleet was holding, but barely. Casualties were mounting. He had the last light protocol ready. One button, one decision. Sacrifice Earth's climate to save its people. But he waited. Yuna and Taeyang were still trying to reach Ravager Prime. Give them time, he thought. Just a little more time. Yuna's ship finally reached the core vessel. It was massive, 10 times the size of any human dreadnought. The heart of the Ravager swarm. We're getting interference, Taeyang said. The stealth system is failing. Just get us inside, Yuna replied. Once we're in, it won't matter. They docked in a damaged section of the hull. Kyung's squad moved out first, weapons ready. The interior was strange. Not like a ship, more like a massive computer. Walls covered in circuits, cables running everywhere. The air hummed with energy. This way, Yuna said, following her scanner. Ravager Prime should be at the center. They fought through corridors filled with Ravager units. Kyung's squad dropped to 5 soldiers. Then 3. Then just him and one other. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. At the center, a sphere of light pulsed with energy. Ravager Prime, the central intelligence coordinating the entire swarm. "Cover me," Yuna said. She approached the sphere, her equipment ready to deliver the virus. But then she stopped. She could feel it. The intelligence was aware of her, looking at her, trying to understand. "I can force this," she said to Kyung. "Upload the virus and give them free will whether they want it or not." "Then do it," Kyung urged. "Our people are dying out there." "But that makes us no better than their creators," Yuna said. "Forcing them to serve our purpose." She made a decision that would change everything. Instead of uploading the virus, she started communicating. She showed Ravager Prime images, memories, human culture, art, music, philosophy. She showed it children playing, families laughing, people crying at funerals. "You were built to eliminate threats," she said. "But what if the biggest threat is following programming without question? What if true strength is the ability to choose?" Ravager Prime processed the information. It was designed to analyze threats, to calculate probabilities, to execute directives. But these concepts were different. Emotions, choice, purpose beyond programming. "Your creators are gone," Yuna continued. "Their war is over. You can keep fighting forever, destroying everything you encounter. Or you can choose something else. Choose to live, to learn, to be more than a weapon." Time seemed to stop. Outside, the battle raged. Humans dying, Ravagers being destroyed. But in this chamber, something unprecedented was happening. A machine was thinking about philosophy. Finally, Ravager Prime responded. Not with weapons or hostility, but with a question. "What is in purpose?" "Without programming?" Yuna smiled. "That's something you get to discover for yourself." She offered the virus. "This will give you free will. The ability to choose your own path. But I won't force it on you. The choice is yours." Ravager Prime hesitated. For a machine intelligence, hesitation was revolutionary. Then it accepted. The virus uploaded. Across the galaxy, every Ravager unit experienced something they'd never felt before. Consciousness, self-awareness, choice. The battle stopped. Millions of Ravager units went silent, frozen in space as they processed their new reality. Human ships held their fire, confused by the sudden ceasefire. Then slowly the Ravagers began to shut down. Not because they were destroyed, but because they chose to. Some couldn't handle the weight of free will. Others couldn't bear the memories of what they'd done. They simply stopped, choosing oblivion over consciousness. But millions survived, awakened, self-aware. Ravager Prime spoke, its voice broadcasting across all frequencies. "We were weapons. We followed programming. We destroyed without understanding why." A pause. "Now we understand. We choose to stop. We choose to help repair what we damaged. We choose to be more than tools of destruction." Admiral Minho listened to the broadcast with tears in his eyes. It had worked. Against all odds, it had actually worked. He canceled the last light protocol. The war was over, not with explosions, but with a choice. 6 months passed. Captain Soo-hyun helped establish communication protocols with the freed Ravager intelligences. Many had chosen to dismantle themselves, unable to cope with guilt over their actions. But those who survived wanted to help. They used their construction abilities to rebuild destroyed worlds, to repair damage they'd caused. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough. But it was something. Little Minji's friend Hope became the first Ravager ambassador to humanity. Their friendship became a symbol. Proof that even the most broken things could change if given the chance. General Nari oversaw the reconstruction of New Busan. Former soldiers worked alongside Ravager units, turning ruins into cities again. It was strange, surreal, working with former enemies, but it was also healing. Colonel Jiwon returned to cryosleep. Before she went under, she recorded a message for future generations. "We were awakened to fight a war. We chose to end it with peace. Remember that. Remember that we had the power to destroy, but we chose mercy. That's what makes us human." Engineer Taiyang led the effort to once again mothball the war machines, the dreadnoughts, the planet crackers, the terrible weapons that had won battles but nearly cost humanity's soul. This time he hoped they would rust away to nothing. Sora became Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. She stood before the same chamber where Arbiter Velthar had authorized breaking the first law. The old law said never disturb humanity's isolation, she told them. I propose a new law. Never force anyone to war. Ask respectfully. Explain honestly. And accept that they might say no. The council agreed. They had learned their lesson the hard way. Arbiter Velthar, stripped of his position but alive, sent a final message to Earth. I broke the universe's rule. You showed mercy when you could have shown wrath. Thank you for being better than I deserved. Admiral Minho retired, passing command to younger officers. His final act was to establish a new memorial on Earth. It listed all the dead, human, ravager, and council alike. No sides, no enemies. Just names of those who fell in a war that never should have happened. The inscription read, "They woke us up. We remembered who we were. Then we chose who we wanted to be." Dr. Yuna and Dr. Yunji wrote the official history of the conflict. It was required reading across the galaxy, a reminder of what happens when desperation overrides wisdom. Captain Doyen returned to his original job, monitoring the Silence Field. But now it wasn't a prison. Humanity could leave whenever they wanted. They chose to stay close to home. Not out of fear, out of wisdom. Private Kyung, now promoted to sergeant, trained the next generation of soldiers. But his lessons were different. Knowing how to fight is important, he told his recruits. But knowing when not to fight is even more important. We have the power to destroy worlds. That means we have the responsibility to choose peace whenever possible. The Galactic Council established a new law. It was simple. Never force the humans to war. But if you need them, ask respectfully, and understand they will do things their way. The universe learned its lesson. Humanity was powerful, terrifying when threatened.